This is the product we're talking about, Aqua Salina. You probably haven't heard of it, but last winter alone, hundreds of thousands of gallons of this was sprayed on our highways. A state report found it contains high levels of something called radium. That's a radioactive element that at high levels has been linked to cancer. The company says it's safe, and the state claims the risk to the public is negligible. Some scientists and environmentalists disagree. This blue-green liquid is a tool in Ohio's fight against road ice.
Let's go at one.
But inside this de-icer are enough radioactive elements.
Wow, that's climbing.
To move the needle on a Geiger counter.
That's radioactive.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources, or ODNR, tested Aqua Salina, and in June and July of 2017 issued these reports, finding, on average, Aqua Salina contains levels of radium 300 times higher than the federal standard for safe drinking water. The report also states Aqua Salina exceeds Ohio discharge to the environment limits.
This report is totally wrong.
David Mansberry is the owner of Nature's Own, the company that makes Aqua Salina. Mansberry not only claims the ODNR report is wrong, he tells me his company conducted its own tests and sent a new report to the state.
We have submitted it through our attorneys to the ODNR.
Can I get a copy?
Not from me yet.
Mansberry says the main ingredient in Aqua Salina is what the label says it is.
It's ancient seawater.
That ancient seawater comes from deep under gas and oil fields owned by Mansberry's other company, Duck Creek Energy, an oil and gas drilling company based in Brecksville, Ohio. In its raw, untreated form, it's called brine, and it looks like this sample from another drilling site. For years, it's been a regulated waste.
If I put our brine out, that just put our brine down on the road, which would be in a raw and treated format, I'd likely end up in jail.
But Mansberry's company filters the brine at these plants in the Cleveland area, removing the impurities and selling it as Aqua Salina. Mansberry tells us one of his biggest clients is the Ohio Department of Transportation, better known as ODOT. From September of 2017 to January of 2018, ODOT sprayed more than 500,000 gallons of Aqua Salina on Ohio highways as a de-icer in extreme cold.
It is not safe.
Environmentalists like Teresa Mills, executive director of the Buckeye Environmental Network, says the state of Ohio is creating radioactive roads.
There will be a constant buildup of radioactive materials on our roads, on the side of our roads, potentially running into our streams, and it's going to affect human beings.
Here in the heart of Pittsburgh at Duquesne University, one scientist has now emerged as the leader in raising the alarm about radioactive roads.
I'm telling you, this stuff is a nightmare.
That scientist is Dr. John Stoltz, director of the Center for Environmental Research and Education at Duquesne. Dr. Stoltz says Aqua Salina or any brine from oil and gas fields should not be spread on our roads. Should they be doing it at all?
No. And the reason, again, is because anything that it touches, and
anything that it touches
potentially becomes contaminated.
Radioactive,
yeah.
So why is Ohio doing this? After several weeks of asking, I filed a public records request and got my answer right here in this state report. That report, dated March 19th of last year, reveals the Ohio Department of Health conducted a residual radiation, or ResRad model, to figure out the effects of those high levels of radium in Aqua Salina on anyone driving over the road. It found the dose of radiation for one application of Aqua Salina is 0.6 millirem. That's more than the 0.5 millirem dose of radiation when you get an x-ray at the dentist. And that exposure is multiplied every time Aqua Salina is applied to a roadway. Still, the report concludes Aqua Salina poses a negligible radiological health risk to public health and safety, which is what Aqua Salina's owner has been saying all along, that his product is safe.
And I soak my feet in it at night at times.
You do not?
Yes, I do.
In your aqua salina. You
absolutely.
soak your feet in aqua salina.
At times I do, yes, when they're sore.
But back at that Duquesne lab, the radioactivity in this jug of aqua salina is high enough that Dr. Stoltz says he's required to report it as hazardous.
Lab.
So that's toxic waste now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you have to pay for to dispose of properly.
Thank you.
It's important to note that aqua salina is sprayed on highways mostly north of us, and again, only when it's extremely cold. So it's just a fraction of the total brine laid down on Ohio highways. Both ODOT and ODNR declined on-camera interviews. Instead, each department emailed us statements which lay out in detail why they say aqua salina does not pose a risk to the public. You can read those full statements on our website, local12.com. I'm Dwayne Pullman.